correct pronunciation of your last name?
Marucchi.
Marucchi.
In American English, Marucchi.
Yeah, okay. That's what I went for. Anyway, okay. Yeah. I'm here with Karim Marucchi at T3Con 25, and today we're going to talk about all things open source and, of course, TYPO3. So, Karim, thank you for joining us at the conference today. And what I really want to talk about is your work in open source, how you became familiar with TYPO3, and what you kind of see as our future breaking out of our bubble and into an international market.
Well, first of all, Kendall, thank you for having me today. It was an amazing experience walking around the event these last few days, and I'm very excited about the sheer excitement that this community has about what's possible.
They're special community.
It is. Yeah. It is. It absolutely is. And my experience really is that I've spent almost more than 30 years in the CMS market in the enterprise, but I came to open source relatively late.
Okay.
I discovered open source when the then acting CIO of Disney, Walt Disney Company, said they wanted to move from a proprietary system to open source because of the costs.
Okay.
So I was thrown into a process helping them of trying to choose between the open source platforms. And now I know why, but surprisingly, the only three choices we were given: WordPress, Drupal, and Joomla.
Yeah, that makes sense.
TYPO3 really isn't known outside of its community.
Yeah.
It's got a very strong community, but it's been a community that's sort of kept to itself.
Yeah.
A lot of open source projects have this inside the bubble problem, but this is one of the sort of the strongest versions of that I've seen, because I've heard of TYPO3 obviously in the last 10 years, and again, 30 plus years in the business in the last 10 years. But in the American market, it's, that's that German thing.
Yeah, that's
right.
That's very true. TYPO dry.
Right.
Also, yeah.
Yeah. So there's not the expectation that it's a competitor.
Yeah.
Over the last 18 months, my team has taken a look at it. We've done some internal integrations. We've understood the product, and we feel, my team as an agency feel, that it is ready. It is what's needed as a competitor to the rest of the open source market in the United States. The question is this community willing and open to create a commercial ecosystem that is friendly internationally?
Yeah.
Not just within the EU or within Germany.
Well, one of the interesting things that I've heard you say multiple times now is that the focus really has to be on selling the solution as to what TYPO3 actually provides to an enterprise size, business and client, and getting into the granular parts of the CMS, the features, all that it can do. You don't find that as appealing for the US market when you're with decision makers, that it's more of a big picture.
There's a time and space for the engineers to speak to the engineering clients.
Yeah.
But the reality is that IT is only part of the decision-making process. Marketing, sales, business strategy, those are the market drivers for any actual business that on the enterprise would install a content management system.
Yeah.
So if you approach them saying, we have the scientifically best, strongest, technically open source project, they're going to say, that's nice. I'm actually just trying to sell cars, supermarkets, whatever it is they sell. They want to know it's a stable platform. They want to know how great it is at internationalization and languages. They want to know the wonderful database schema. Once you've had the conversation of how you're going to solve their problem.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
So start there.
Yeah. And so for me, I've only worked in the open source community in Europe. So now I'm very familiar with why it's so important to choose open source. I've seen it, in the use cases of the German governments and public institutions and higher education, and I understand it from a European point of view. However, being an American and not having worked in open source, what do you find in these larger, enterprise style businesses? Why is open source appealing for them, for the American market, or what tips the scale for them to choose an open source solution?
So for the last 15 years, we've been singing the same song in the open source world for the US market, which is total cost of ownership.
Yeah.
It's much easier to maintain an open source project as a large organization than it is to maintain a proprietary SaaS. And the uneducated buyer comes and says, it's open source, it's free. The first thing we do is we say, no, it's just a lower cost.
Yeah.
My favorite origin story is how Red Hat and IBM in the late 90s started doing this, but the agency and the IT department are partners in maintaining it at a lower cost for the business to use it for what it needs. So that was the last 15 years. What's interesting is here in Europe, with all the regulation, you have a moment of opportunity with open source. In the US, we don't have that regulation at the moment. I'll leave politics where they are, but the large corporations have decided that they need their own corporate data sovereignty.
Yeah.
And they can't have that with SaaS systems. So they're starting to look at open source, not just for total cost of ownership, but also for owning your data. And once they start looking at owning their data, they're like, we can have a custom roadmap of what we want to do. Then they start realizing we can innovate faster. We don't have to wait for Adobe or Sitecore or pick your flavor of proprietary CMS to create a roadmap.
Yeah.
And it snowballs.
And so with all of that setting the stage, and from what you said actually on the stage, can you repeat what you think the biggest challenges are for TYPO3 to break into that model, coming from the reputation of being a very German CMS, debunking some of that it's complicated, that it's,
Use the heritage you have. In the US, German engineering is lauded. It's applauded.
Yeah.
But don't make it the first thing. Say, it's good. It's scalable because this is our history. But now we are moving faster. We are innovating.
Yeah.
We are looking to understand how to create a marketplace. We are looking to partner with products. We are looking to create an ecosystem. One of the things that open source communities realize is they talk a lot about community. Mm-hmm. They forget about ecosystem. One of the reasons why WordPress has become so popular and has such a big following is because there's a product ecosystem and there's an agency ecosystem, and they don't compete.
Yeah.
They work together.
Do you think that people are using ecosystem and community synonymously or blending the two as to what that actually...
So...
Because I do. I think that, they get mixed together.
They get mixed together. Honestly, when I say ecosystem, I mean the business of the open source project.
Yeah.
And for an open source project to have longevity and expand, it needs to have an ecosystem.
Sure.
One of the key reasons why TYPO3 is in the bubble it's in is it hasn't created an ecosystem outside of 2 or 3 very vertical niches that you've saturated here.
Yeah.
Good. I was looking at some of the market data that was being shared with me here at the conference. It's impressive. But where are you going to go from here?
Do you think that American institutions or the government, for example, would find the use cases of German are German institutions using TYPO3 as appealing, or do you think that even?
So you say institutions, and I know what you mean by that because notwithstanding we share this accent, I actually have a European passport.
Me too.
Oh, there you go. And if you think about it a different way, large organizations, yes, there is an appeal.
Yeah.
But it's a different circumstance. In the US, you need to go to large organizations and you need to show them what they need and what they need to solve their problem. And the rest of it will come after that.
Sure. So it's leading with that.
Yeah, it's leading with that. I'm sorry, I lost the point of your question.
No, that's okay. Yeah, so I guess the point being that we make such a big deal to emphasize the government site builder, things that we're doing with the German government, the percentage of government, in Germany that utilizes TYPO3. Do you think that that's appealing for the U.S. government, or making that case in that sector, or?
So the U.S. government is starting to use more open source, but they only do it because the Fortune companies already have.
Sure.
So it's a little bit backwards.
Yeah.
Go to the enterprise first, and then go back in. Right now, there's a lot of Drupal in government.
Okay.
At the moment, it's gotten in there. There's a lot of Drupal in the university systems. But I think a good entry point for this particular open source project would actually be the enterprise. Because once you can prove with a few use cases and a few case studies that you can do that, it will fall back into the rest of the ecosystem.
I think one of the interesting things, because I personally work on the case studies, is as a non-technical person and kind of coming from the angle that you're talking about, where, people are sitting in a room who aren't technically as savvy as the engineers or anyone who ultimately will be working with the software. For me to understand TYPO3 and work in these use cases and extract those really important marketing selling points, coming from completely outside of open source, working with a CMS, anything like that, has been such a it's been such an interesting experience for me with fresh eyes to see what TYPO3 can do from a high level without getting into the details, because a lot of what I'm given is very detail oriented. But yeah, my whole job is zooming out to say, okay, what does this do? And how can we package it up to show it in its best light? And in this case, where we have an installation that is handling such a robust website for a university, or just at such an enterprise scale, that's been really interesting for me coming outside of the ecosystem and the community to figure out how to tell these stories and why they're so important, because there are so many good use cases in Europe with TYPO3, and even in North America, the Quebec website, like the official Quebec website, is run on TYPO3, and it is such an interesting use case for this. And being able to tell those stories, I think, is the whole point.
Yes, and I'm going to add something to that. TYPO3 is very used to government. It's very used to universities. But one of the reasons that Drupal has success and WordPress has success is because they went from just being a CRM in maybe those two verticals to saying we can use it for different types of content management.
Okay. So diversifying
what you're trying to address as the major problem.
Yeah.
It's too easy to just say we've done a lot of government here, so we're going to do government there. We've done a lot of universities here, so we're going to do universities there. But you're going to have a harder time getting in there than you are with the American mindset and where the technology mindset is today of innovation.
Yeah.
In trying to make new case studies, new innovation, new examples.
Yeah, so diversifying the portfolio. I
was saying on stage earlier, in Walt Disney, they use WordPress to market some marketing sites. They also use WordPress to manage a lot of data in different business units. They use WordPress to manage the data of the veterinary records of all the animals in their animal park.
Okay.
The elephants, the giraffes. So they use WordPress to publish internal numbers to a dashboard as an interface.
Okay.
Right? It's all content.
Yeah.
You're managing the content, but they've created a standard throughout the entire organization that we like what the interface is. We like the standardization. So instead of just making marketing, we're also going to use it to manage other types of content.
Yeah.
And it's sort of ballooned and replicated into simple applications.
Okay.
Now, the engineers out there are going to go, well, that's not an application. It's just publishing information to the website. It is content management. But that's not how the business sees it.
Sure.
The business sees it as, oh, you're a content management system. Yeah, I have a marketing site over there. So stop selling the content management system. Ask them what their problem is. Well, the problem is we have all this veterinary data and we need to make it easily available on an iPad in the park when they're walking around. You just described a website.
Yeah.
But if you say website, they're going to go, no, it's not a website. So meet them where they are.
And package it as a solution. Okay. And kind of to wrap this up, because I think that's a good place to, because now we're zooming out, we're looking at it as a holistic image. What do you foresee with TYPO3 trying to make inroads to the US? Like, what do you think after spending a few days with the community, meeting Daniel, having some introductions?
I have plenty of customers who have complex data, have lots of content that is managed badly across multiple systems that could use TYPO3. Frankly, my agency is guilty of helping organizations pick WordPress when WordPress wasn't the best thing.
Okay.
TYPO3 would have been a better solution. But unless this community creates an ecosystem that I can explain to my customers is viable, they're not going to allow me. They're going to choose WordPress over TYPO3. And that's going to drive everybody outside this room crazy.
Yeah.
But that's what's going to happen. So we have to help our agency salespeople and the marketing teams of these large organizations and the sales teams of these large organizations understand that TYPO3 isn't just a CMS. It's a tool for solving their problems.
I think that is a perfect place to stop. And it's funny, we've walked around the conference, we've asked everyone kind of as a fun marketing ploy to say, what's the new slogan for TYPO3? If you had to come up with one. That was it right there. So I really appreciate the time and for getting to meet you. And I know that we will be in touch very much over the next few months. So
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.